I'll preface it by saying this. If I hadn't seen this, if I hadn't have seen this, and I had never seen anything remotely resembling, I would say it's bullshit. I wouldn't believe it. I'd say, fuck that. No way.
You reserve anyone the right to say so.
Yes,
after you
and they're going to say that, but I understand. I don't start it and say, and then this happened, and the people are like, what are you crazy? I know how crazy it sounds, so right. I'm giving you that up front, so knock that bullshit out of there.
Which is also why we have an exclusive here. But
I am telling you, everything I'm about to say, this is on my children. This happened. Now, I don't know what it was. You know, I can't say it was aliens from whatever. I don't know. But this is what happened. It happened on Halloween night, 1975. Okay, I was a freshman in college, and I went to Providence College. But that night, my buddy and I drove down to the University of Rhode Island to visit friends. And we partied, went to parties, hung out, drank beer, did it all, ended up at a pizza parlor, ate, and then we had to drive home. And we were driving home late. Excuse me. It's probably 3 o'clock in the morning. And we were cruising back, and it was about an hour drive for us. And it was on, we had gotten on off Route 95 onto Route 295, which is more rural, and there were no cars on the road. And I do remember, and we weren't talking, we were just listening to the radio, listening to tunes, cruising along. It's the end of the night. We're done. And we're cruising down this long straightaway where you could see, like, kind of for about 10 miles. You could see, like, down for about 5 and up about 5. You know what I'm saying? Like one of those long...
Sure.
Yeah. And coming down the road, the highway toward us, over the highway, is a light. It appears to be like a plane or a helicopter or something coming down toward us. And I see it, but I'm not thinking anything of it. But cruising along, listening to radio. As it gets bigger, the lights get bigger and bigger. I'm thinking, wow, that's a big helicopter. It's clearly like low, so it's got to be some kind of helicopter type thing. Again, we're not saying a word. It's getting closer and closer. The lights are getting bigger and bigger, and it's not going fast. It's going, you know, taking its time, coming down the highway. And I remember, like, among other things, whatever I'm thinking, listen to radio, this, wow, that's a really big helicopter. Then it gets bigger. I'm thinking, well, that must be like a military helicopter. This is in my head. And it's approaching and approaching. It's big and big, and we haven't said a peep, you know. Just see that it's kind of like not even paying attention. And all of a sudden, as it's coming upon us, suddenly it's a massive thing. And it is a rectangular-shaped craft, I will say, okay? It's rectangular, like, it's hard to say how big it is because you can't tell how high it is, but it seems to be a few hundred yards up, maybe it's 1,000 feet up, I don't know. It's not that high. But it's rectangular shape, and there's zillions of lights under it. And the lights are going back, like, sideways, like, back and forth. And then the other ones, no sound, by the way. And the other ones are going this way. Like, so they're kind of crossing each other, all these lights. And then there are a few lights that are doing like a wind, like a fan. They're like going around a circle, lights, and they're all over the place going. And it is like fucking lighting the goddamn highway up over, you know, as we're going through it, and it's taking its time. I'm telling you, it's right out of Star Wars. You know, when you see the thing come over you and it just keeps going, and we're like, and I'm looking up at like, what the? And I look over at my friend, and my friend looks at me and goes, "The fucking Scientology!" And I was like, ugh. And I remember my legs.
Is that a quote, by the way?
My legs went weak. It was like completely rubbery. Like I remember pushing my foot on the gas. It was an effort. Like I literally lost all the blood in my legs somehow. And my wife had said, "Do you think you guys were, you know?" No, I don't think we were. But I'm telling you, my legs went completely numb out of fear. I'm assuming, but I've never had that sensation before, where I was pushing down the gas, like, "Oh my God, let's go, let's go!" And I took off, and we cruised down the highway. And as I'm cruising off, my heart, I'm looking in the rearview mirror, and I can see it just heading away down the highway, down Route 295. Okay, and I remember the guy had passed us about 10 minutes earlier in a car, so we said, let's find that guy, see if he saw it, because there's not a car on the road. So I drove about 110 miles an hour until we got to our exit, which was another 7 or 8 miles, excuse me, and never caught up with the guy. And I dropped my buddy off, and then I went home, and I remember on the way home I was just like terrified. I was looking around, is this thing going to come back for me? Came home, woke my parents up, woke my sister up. I just saw flying saucers, the whole thing. They're like, go to bed. I said, no. I just... Anyway.
How old were you again?
18.
Okay.
So the next morning I get up to go to school, and I always listen to the same radio station every morning. It was an AM station because I only had an AM radio in my car. And,
back in the 50s.
Yeah. And I'm listening to it, and cruising to school, and a thing comes out that says, if anybody has reported seeing an unidentified flying object, please call this number. I said, geez, got a pen, wrote it down, got to school, went to a phone booth. Yeah, I saw it last night. Did people see it? They said, no, we're just taking a poll. I said, what? I said, I just saw the thing last night. And I hear this thing? And, come on, who saw it? And they said, no, we're just taking a poll. So I was like, what's your name? Where do you live? All this. We'll get back to you if we need to. I said, okay, great. So for the next 2 weeks, everybody I see, I saw a flying saucer. I said, thing, there's a real one, you know. And finally, after a couple of weeks, I'm thinking, wait a second, who was that? What was that? Because that number, that thing that came on the radio station, it was the big radio station in Rhode Island, never came back. That no. I listened to it every morning at the same time. They never asked for that again. So I called that number, disconnected.
Sure. 2
weeks later, disconnected number.
We're just taking a poll.
Yeah. So years later, I watched a video. It was called UFOs in America. It's the history of UFOs in America. And they said that the most sightings ever in the U.S. were in the northeastern United States in the fall of '75. That's when I had seen mine. And their theory is that because there were a lot of nuclear power plants being built and nuclear subs at New London, which was only like a half hour from where I was when I saw this thing. They don't know why, but you know these things seem to be attracted to that. Now, on that day, by the way, like there was a part of me that thought, well, that could be a military thing. You know,
sure.
You know, I don't know what it is.
They don't want you to know.
Well, it could certainly be like it was just cruising down the highway, and maybe it's some military thing that we don't know about. But it was nothing that I've ever heard about. Now, you know, we're 38 years later, and this thing still doesn't exist. This big rectangular thing
with no sound.
With no sound that cruises over us. So, you know, I feel confident that it was, you know, I mean, it was an unidentified flying object, but whether it was of this planet or whatever, who knows? But I'm just telling you, that's my story.
Well, that's the first and best first-hand experience that I've heard.
Well, I have a lot of people, even having seen this, I'm suspicious of stories. Like people say, I saw it. I said, what did you see? They said, well, I was in the desert and I saw this light that was zigzagging in a way that planes can't zigzag. That's a light. That's not a UFO. Yeah. I had a ship come over my car. You know, yeah. That's what I saw. And that's the God's honest truth.
Yeah, it sounds like it's also the size of like a battleship. Like it was ridiculous. It was like the length of a football field kind of thing.
But again, it was hard to tell because the perspective, it's at night and it's coming over you and it's long. It's coming slow, and you're looking like, oh my God, what the fuck is going on?
Like it's never going to end.
Yeah, but on the other hand, is that 100 yards up or is that like 3,000 feet? I don't know.
No.
It's hard to tell the perspective, but it's huge and it's clear rectangle. And by the way, that's the thing that bothers me is
we don't have those.
I never hear that one. People are always talking about flying saucers or things, but I've never heard the rectangle.
Yeah.
This was a complete rectangle, a long.
We heard the cigar shape.
Yeah.
That comes up every now and then.
Yeah.
But the dining room table.
Yeah. I'm assuming that state police must have seen it because it came right down 295. There was probably some statey out. He picked up on it. And somehow they wanted to know what it was. Who knows who put that number out there?
Yeah.
But I called in the next day, gave all my information, and boom, 2 weeks later.
We're just taking a poll, they said.
Yeah, just taking a poll.
Wow. That is fucking fantastic.
Yeah.